Good evening and welcome to Global Ends News. I'm Sadia Afzal. Across much of the Muslim world today, anger toward Israel has reached historic levels. From Gaza to Iran, from Lebanon to Jerusalem, the region has watched war, destruction, airstrikes, civilian deaths, and rising instability unfold almost non-stop. Millions of people across Muslim-majority countries have marched in protest. Social media has exploded with outrage. Religious leaders, activists, students, and ordinary citizens have condemned Israeli military actions and questioned why so many governments remain passive. But while much of the Muslim world has grown more hostile toward Israel politically and emotionally, one country has moved in the opposite direction: the United Arab Emirates. At a time when many expected Arab states to isolate Israel diplomatically, the UAE has continued expanding relations with it, economically, strategically, technologically, and politically. And for many critics across the Muslim world, that relationship has become deeply controversial. To supporters, the UAE is being pragmatic. They argue the modern world runs on trade, technology, intelligence cooperation, and strategic alliances, not emotional politics. They say the region needs stability, investment, and modernization more than endless confrontation. From this perspective, engaging Israel is not betrayal, it is reality. But to critics, the issue is far bigger than diplomacy. They ask, how can a major Muslim country strengthen ties with Israel while Gaza burns, while Palestinians remain under occupation, and while regional tensions continue escalating? That question has become one of the most emotionally charged debates in the Middle East today. The turning point came with the Abraham Accords. When the UAE normalized relations with Israel, it shocked many across the Arab and Muslim world. For decades, much of the region maintained the position that normalization should come only after a meaningful resolution to the Palestinian issue. But the UAE broke with that approach and presented normalization as a new vision for the Middle East, one based on economic cooperation, security partnerships, tourism, technology, and business. The agreement transformed relations rapidly. Israeli tourists flooded Dubai, business partnerships expanded, intelligence and cybersecurity cooperation reportedly deepened, trade between the two countries grew dramatically, investments increased, flights became routine, official meetings became public and frequent. The UAE framed this as peace and progress. Critics saw something very different. For many Palestinians and their supporters, normalization sent a devastating message that Arab governments were willing to move on from the Palestinian struggle in exchange for strategic and economic benefits. That anger only intensified after the Gaza war. As images of destruction spread globally, many expected Arab governments to take stronger action against Israel. Some countries issued harsh statements. Protests erupted across the region, but critics argued that the UAE's response remained measured and cautious compared to public anger on the streets of the Muslim world. This created a growing perception among many people that a gap now exists between Arab governments and Arab public opinion. And nowhere is that perception stronger than with the UAE. Social media across the Muslim world became flooded with accusations that Gulf elites were prioritizing business and geopolitical interests over Palestinian lives. Hashtags criticizing normalization trended repeatedly. Activists accused governments of silence while civilians suffered. The criticism became even stronger as Israel's confrontation with Iran intensified. For decades, Gulf countries viewed Iran as a major regional threat. The UAE, like several Gulf states, has long had security concerns regarding Iranian influence in the region. Because of this, Some analysts believe shared fears about Iran brought Gulf states and Israel closer together strategically. In other words, the relationship is not driven only by economics. It is also about power. Israel and some Gulf governments increasingly share common enemies, common security interests, and common concerns about regional instability. Intelligence cooperation, missile defense discussions, cybersecurity partnerships, and strategic coordination all became easier after normalization. To supporters of normalization, this is simply geopolitics. To critics, it represents something darker, the creation of a regional alliance where Palestinian suffering becomes secondary to power politics. And this is where the UAE receives some of the harshest criticism. Because unlike Western countries, the UAE is not just any state in the eyes of many Muslims. It is an Arab and Muslim country. It hosts major Islamic institutions. It presents itself internationally as a leading voice of moderation and modernity in the Muslim world. This is why critics argue its relationship with Israel carries symbolic weight far beyond ordinary diplomacy. For many people, it feels personal, especially when Israeli military actions continue generating outrage globally. People ask difficult questions. If normalization was supposed to encourage peace, why has violence continued escalating? If economic partnerships were meant to stabilize the region, why does the Middle East feel more unstable than ever? And if Arab governments truly support Palestinians, why do diplomatic and business ties with Israel continue expanding even during conflict? These questions have become politically sensitive across the region. At the same time, the UAE sees itself very differently from how critics portray it. Emirati leadership promotes a vision centered on economic development, global investment, technological leadership, and strategic influence. The UAE wants to position itself as a global hub connecting East and West, business and diplomacy, technology and finance. From that perspective, relations with Israel are part of a larger strategy. Build alliances with powerful technological and military partners while reducing dependence on old ideological conflicts. The UAE also argues that engagement gives it influence and communication channels that isolation never achieved. But many people across the Muslim world remain unconvinced. To supporters, it represents a new Middle East focused on economics, technology, and pragmatism. To critics, it represents the decline of traditional Arab solidarity with Palestine. And the more conflict expands from Gaza to Iran, the more intense that criticism becomes. What makes the situation especially important is that it reflects a larger transformation happening across the Middle East. The old political order of the Arab world is changing. Governments increasingly prioritize security, trade, investment, and geopolitical survival over ideological unity. Public opinion still matters, but strategic interests often matter more. That reality has created deep frustration among ordinary people who feel disconnected from the decisions being made by powerful states. And nowhere is that frustration more visible than in debates surrounding the UAE and Israel. Because in the eyes of millions, the question is no longer just whether normalization was politically smart. The question is whether any economic partnership can justify closeness with Israel during one of the bloodiest and most controversial periods in the region's modern history. That is the debate now shaping public opinion across the Muslim world. And it is a debate that is only becoming more intense with every new crisis in the Middle East. This is Sadia Afzal for Global Lens News.